Hello fellow coffee botherers, in this video we're going to be talking about this, the Superkop. It's a manual lever espresso machine with a difference, the main difference being this, a ratchet system. It has a lever and a piston, but instead of one lever pull, there's a series of 6 lever pulls as you go through the ratchet positions, starting off with just pre-wetting and then building up the pressure from there. Let's go through the specs first. The main body of the machine is aluminium coated stainless steel. Stainless steel ratchet mechanism, solid polished stainless steel lever, BPA-free polycarbonate water chamber with stainless steel dispersion screen. It'll take a maximum of just under 100ml. If you fill it to the top line, that's about 70ml. 58ml solid stainless steel portafilter, solid wooden base, but you can also get a wall mounted kit. The lever is this long. The unit itself is this tall, this wide and this deep. It's available in 3 colour options and every unit is individually numbered, and you get an ownership certificate too containing the same number, which is a nice touch. I have to say I love the way this looks, and in particular I love the wall mounted option. I think you'd need some kind of splashback or something above the drip tray so you don't end up with espresso all over the wall, or just paint your walls brown, but I can see loads of really obvious places to install this other than the kitchen. If you've got a workshop, garage, gym, anything like that where you don't necessarily have a kitchen or the space for an espresso machine, this could be mounted away in the corner with a little shelf or table for the grinder and tamping. I'll make an espresso with it first and then I'll answer the obvious questions. I'd always preheat the portafilter before the first shot, just by pouring hot water through it. You don't need to do this for every shot if you're pulling back-to-back shots though. I'm not preheating the brew chamber. I was going to ignore the manufacturer's claim that the chamber doesn't need preheating, but they're right, it doesn't, which surprised me. If you do want to preheat the brew chamber though, I'll give you a little hack for doing that shortly. The first couple of lever pulls are just setting the piston in place and then starting to build up some pre-infusion pressure. It's the 4th, 5th and 6th pulls where the main extraction happens. If you're dialed in, you shouldn't have to exert much pressure at all. The pressure does drop off momentarily each time you lift the lever, as Lance showed in his video, and I'll link to that in the description. I'll link to Mark's video from Coffee Geek 2 in the description. He's done a couple of nice, short, simple walkthrough videos on the Superkop. So I'm trying to be fairly quick and lifting the lever back up, but as Lance also showed in his video, you can spike the pressure way up by being heavy-handed with the lever, so I'm going slow and steady on the pulls. 6th pull, that's it. Lever up and then cocked back. Check that out. Great way to finish pulling a shot. Very satisfying. Now let's answer questions. How simple is it to use? Very, very simple. If you're using a relatively forgiving espresso blend, and I'm using a very forgiving blend here, chocolate brownie blend, so I'm cheating a bit, you should find this really easy to use once you've tried it a few times. For me, this was the easiest lever machine to get used to. Literally from the 3rd attempt, I was getting mega espresso with chocolate brownie blend. Although, as I've said, that's a very forgiving blend. If you're using a lighter roast single origin, you may need to work a bit harder to get dialed in. My advice would be to get to grips with this or any new machine using a forgiving blend, so you can just get used to the way the machine works and then starting using a challenging bean if that's what you like. Speaking of chocolate brownie blend, let's have a word from our sponsor, me.
Oh, do we have to?
Yeah.
Go on then.
We have a range of 19 coffees now at the Coffee Works. We have something for everyone, but I can't deny that chocolate brownie blend is my absolute favourite. It's what I drink here every day. As I've said, it's very forgiving and it's bold and chocolatey, but it's not over the top in terms of intensity. It's very much what I'd call a crowd pleaser. Try it. Use discount code YT25 for 25% off your first order and you'll get a kilo of it for 15 quid. Bargain. How do you know what the brew pressure is? You don't at the moment. If you're someone who wants relatively standard, traditional espresso, this really doesn't matter. You don't need to see the pressure gauge. You'll know what's what from how long it takes to see the first drips and how long the shot takes, and how it tastes. If you're using light to medium roasts and you want to use pressure profiling, then yeah, you'd really need a pressure gauge. I believe this is something Superkop are working on, so we might see an add-on in the future, which I'm assuming will be an updated chamber with a pressure gauge. What does the espresso taste like? Obviously, it depends on the coffee, the grinder and how well dialed in you are, but I know my chocolate brownie blend very well. And the espresso I've been drinking via Superkop tastes exactly how it does when I'm dialed in with any of the electric machines I use. So for me, it's more like espresso from pump machines, which is great if that's what you want. The espresso via the Sonic S7, for example, reminded me more of the espresso I'm used to tasting from the Lavalier Europiccola. There's just something about the taste and mouthfeel of traditional lever machines, and the espresso on the S7 reminded me a bit more of that, while this is more like the espresso taste via the Gaggia Reale and all the other electric pump machines I use. What's the workflow like? I'll make another espresso with it without talking so you can see. As you saw, it's really quick and simple. Once your puck prep is done, it's just a case of filling the brew chamber and then doing your 6 lever pulls. Knock it out and then drying the portafilter. Is preheating an issue? It's not, and this is the main issue with most manual lever machines, getting the brewing chamber hot. If you're using an espresso blend, I don't think you really need to preheat the chamber. It'll only give you an extra couple of degrees Celsius. If you're using a lighter roast and you want as much heat as possible, then do this. Get a 58ml blind basket, put it on the bottom of the chamber, fill it with boiling water, leave it to preheat for a couple of minutes while you're grinding and doing your puck prep. If you're doing this, I'd say it's pointless if you don't also preheat your portafilter, and the best way to do that is to pour hot water through it or leave it immersed in hot water. How much is it? Don't know yet. See the pinned comment. Is this the best manual lever espresso machine? I don't think that exists. I think it depends on the user. If all users were the same, then we could use sweeping statements like that. If you're someone who wants a manual machine and you want a lever but you like the idea of this 6 lever pull ratchet system and you like the idea of the water chamber fitting onto the portafilter like this and not having to put much effort into preheating, then I'd say it's probably the best machine for you. When it comes to the lever, you don't have to put in much effort. Starting out, you might think you have to, and I think most people probably will until they get used to it, but the ratchet system builds the pressure, so you only have to put in relatively minimal effort. So that's something that I think may appeal to some people. Personally, I really like the water chamber fitting onto the portafilter. I like being able to fill the chamber here, right in front of me, rather than having to pour hot water into a chamber fixed on the machine itself. Also, this is your shower screen, so it makes cleaning really easy. It's clearly built to last. I think this will last for decades with very little maintenance. The cons versus some of the other manual options, it's on the pricier side of things compared to its rivals. Unlike the Flare 58 and Sonic S7, it doesn't have an E61 compatible portafilter. The portafilters are specific to the Superkop. It's 58mm, so there's no issue with baskets, tampers and so on, but you won't be able to swap out the portafilter, although the portafilters are very nice and very solid. Personally, I love this and I want one. I'm probably going to put one up on the wall here somewhere. It'll take up very little space, especially if you're wall mounting it. I think it's a real talking point. In a business, for example, if you're a mechanic or if you have a bike shop or anything like that, having one of these on the wall so you can quickly make an espresso for a customer I think would be a brilliant thing. Or if you've converted the garage or spare room into a gym, you could mount this on the wall with a small shelf next to it with your grinder, tamper, knockbox, etc. and make your pre-workout espresso right there before you train. So for me, this is yet another option out there to consider if you're thinking of going for a manual lever espresso machine. The more the merrier, I say, as long as they're not all clones of each other. And as you can see, the Superkop is no clone. Coffee Cave comment of the week!
Ramzin says, so annoying you just pumping talking.
What? What are you saying? I can't hear you. What? Thank you very much for watching, and if you think coffee is lucky and you enjoyed this video, we've got tons of content about how to make better coffee at home to take you from beginner to home barista. We've got reviews and how-tos on the most popular machines. If you like the sound of that, click on my face to subscribe. Tatty Bye!